to do our agenda review today, and we're joined by just about everybody and maybe all of our council members and Josanne from administration. And we will have BJ guide us through this.
Thank you,
We'll
President.
get done quickly.
I don't anticipate that. This is probably the largest packet I have ever
Yes.
seen in the decade that I have worked
I
in this
agree.
office.
The mayor apologized yesterday about the size of it.
But all the council members are here. We're joined by the city clerk, the deputy clerk, and our senior legislative aide, Katie Hasselwander. And we'll get started. Jumping into the Finance Committee, we have introductories number 189 and 190, which is the 2020 through 2024 consolidated plan, the 2020 to 2021 annual action plan, and the amended citizen participation plan amended in 2020. So this is the acceptance of the full plan, much of which is operationalized in NBD this month.
BJ, can I just ask, because of how long the packet is and the fact that we also had budget hearings last week, earlier this week, I'm probably going to submit some additional questions in writing. What is the final date that we can do that?
I would defer to my colleague, Josanne Reeves in the mayor's office, because she's the one that sets the deadlines for the folks across the hall.
So I ideally need them this evening, but tomorrow morning, because they have to submit answers by Tuesday. So we have to give them enough time.
So can we, because it's already 4:30 and I would call, some might even call that evening. Can we say tomorrow at noon?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
I think-
you.
And to Mitch's point, I'll probably, if I have, I'll try to do it tomorrow, but if not, I guess I can just wait to committees. If I have questions then, I can ask them then also.
Sure. I mean, we're also going to go through everything. So there might be something, a lot of this is stuff that we've seen before. It's just coming back in there are a couple new items, but a lot of this is pretty routine budget stuff. So let's just start. We went through 189 and 190. Does anyone have any general questions? We also had a full work session on this.
Just one question on this, BJ. It says there was a virtual Q&A session on May 18th, and I'm wondering if they have any numbers on how many people participated.
Okay.
BJ, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I just say that if you're going to ask questions about the budget issues and not the agenda review issues, can you just note that in your email to me? Because those would have to go to Sarah Ruckford as well.
So here's what I would say. Please, no one send anything directly to Josanne. Just send it to me. And if it is a budget question, those were due by 4 o'clock and I did not receive any, but I did hear from one of you that you had some that, so I'm still anticipating that I'll get those.
Are you talking about me? Because I sent it to you.
Oh,
I sent it to you.
You said Jen was going to send them to me by 4 and I did not get them.
I ended up sending them to you.
Oh, okay. Well, then I have those and I will take those to Sarah Ruckford. Any other
Okay.
agenda review questions, just identify the item and the question, but we'll plow through this. Any other questions on 189 and 190?
Go BJ, just go.
Yeah. So I had a quick question on here because thank you, Katie, for putting together the review of the plan. It was interesting, the change of the categories and all of that. My question is around the demolition program. Can you have them please give us an update in terms of how many properties at this point they anticipate having to demo? Because I thought we were pretty well caught up last I thought.
The actual demolition item is in NBD, so we'll ask that when we get to NBD, if that's okay.
Oh,
Okay, so you want to do the questions based on the individual pieces when we get to them?
Well, there is money set aside for demolitions, and neighborhood and business development is one of the items that we'll review. So
Okay.
I think it would be better to put with that question.
And the anticipated number of
Okey-dokey.
demos for this upcoming year is 100. It's in the transmittal.
It's
Yes.
100? And, okay, all right. I'll wait till more questions over there then. All right.
Introductory number 191 is in agreement with Young Explosives Corp. For the fireworks displays. Any questions on 191?
I was just curious.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just curious as how much does it cost, for each event, or like an average price for each event? When they do a display.
Are we doing displays this year? I
Well,
mean,
in the
it sounds-
transmittal, it says that there's nothing scheduled.
Yeah, the transmittal says that it allows for flexibility to be able to plan based on,
oh, so we may not use this.
What-
Okay.
That's my question. When will a decision be made by?
Don't know.
I mean,
I want to state for the record too, even if it incriminates me, I am anti-fireworks. Don't like them. Not gonna lie.
What, are you scared?
Did you play with him when you was a kid and got burned?
Too
Nope.
much boom?
I love our conversations, but I do want to keep us on track.
Okay.
So
You can tell
any
we're
other
tired.
questions on
BJ.
191?
We're
I
tired.
just want to note seriously that, in this year, like fireworks is not top of my priority agenda.
Okay, introductory number 192.
Boom.
An agreement for Mobility Development Corporation. President Scott, we included your question from chair's meeting, which is what would the provision for insurance if someone is in an accident with a car?
What are the locations for the two that they're recommending here, and what does it cost? As a resident to rent?
Okay,
or
any other
share?
questions on 192?
Yeah,
Yes.
kind of similar to Jackie. Is this going to be a membership or the fees and what they would be? And how will people be able to pay for it? Because I know, with credit cards versus cash, it can be an issue.
The transmittal says there'll be membership fees and usage fees on an hourly basis, but I think it's worth asking if there's incentives like there were for PACE for the rideshare, if there's any way for people who are using SNAP or anything like that to get specific incentives.
I'll include that as a separate question.
How is this different than Zipcar?
I think Zipcar is a brand of ride share, and I think if you look in the transmittal or in the second page, Zipcar is one of the places that an RFQ was sent to. So that's just a company.
Comparable. Okay, good to know.
Yep.
Does this mean there's no funds coming from the city to pay for this? I see two sources, none of which are from the city. I see New York State and Federal Highway.
Probably safe assumption.
Also, just a note, when at the NLC conference, I attended one of the sessions where the presenter was of Zipcar, and she mentioned that she had some concerns about the viability of it in our city, which is disappointing. But if anybody's interested in that, I can research more.
They've got cars on the U of R campus and somewhere else in the city.
It's- The college campus is different.
That's my point.
I'll
though.
ask her again.
That's my point.
I'll send it out.
Mike, did you actually have a question in there? I didn't.
Nope, that was a comment.
Okay. 193, authorizing an agreement for economic development and urban entrepreneurship consulting services. Any questions on 193?
Can you, or I don't know, put it in there. What's the difference between this and the last one? Didn't we just do a corridor business study with Dr. Ogilvy? What's the difference?
We did this last summer as well because she worked in the summer, and this one is for this summer, basically.
So we're doing a new business study every year?
No, it's not a new study. She's going to be doing some other things, but if you want to ask for what that entails, I think that's a good.
Yeah, that would be great. Maybe that's a good way, what specifically are we getting with this particular round of?
Yeah.
But Josanne, that's why it's for 3 months. It's basically to offset the semesters for RIT.
Yes. Yep.
Can you, BJ, would you just ask if RIT is contributing anything to the?
Oh, your voice was unintelligible. Sorry. Can you try one more time, Councilmember Gruber? I missed that.
So I'm like,
You're mute. On mute.
He is, I guess, going to come back in. In the interim, any other questions on 193 for Councilmember Ortiz? I have, what is the difference between this and the last study with Dr. Ogilvy? What's the reason for the extension? What additional information do we plan to gather?
Yeah, I guess my question would just be, how is this a continuation of her work for Redco, or is this different?
So do you think that that is sort of captured in the first question?
Um,
Or is your
I
question
guess I
specific to
specifically want to
Redco?
know, is it separate from her work in Redco?
It is, but you should still ask the question on what she's doing. I know she's going to be doing some things with Doreen and planning around how can restaurants open and businesses, and can they be outside, that kind of thing. So she's involved in that over the summer.
Councilmember Gruber, you want to give it a second try?
I put it in the chat.
Oh, but you are 100% understandable.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yes, I think RIT pays a portion of the salary, and Josanne, correct me if I'm wrong, this is to pick up what she would make during
The summer, yeah.
summer months,
Right.
which you could do consulting.
RIT pays for the year, the September through,
The school year they pay
Yes.
for, it, and then this
Right.
offsets the summer.
yep.
So we'll move on to number 234. This is a tweener. This is a revenue anticipation note for the city school district. Any questions on 234?
I'm looking at this thing and I'm still looking for the actual, where in this huge pile of stuff.
The attachment was sent separately.
Yeah, I got the attachment. Well, wait a minute.
Mm-mm.
Attachment 234.
It was
It's-
sent in an email.
Yeah, it's around 40 some pages, or 30 or 40 pages.
Mike,
BJ,
it's
I
your
just had
purple
a
sheets.
quick question on this. I mean, I know we've done them in the past, but can you have them refresh our memory? What are the actual terms of this? Because it's a short-term borrowing, but I know we're paying some amount of interest, I would assume, on this money. Because it's a 1 year at what interest rate? Or is there? I mean, does anybody know that? I don't know.
They normally pay everything, but we have to borrow it on their behalf. So I don't think we have a cost. That would be the question. I guess that would be the question.
Do we pay interest on this stuff?
They do. Well, the school district pays everything.
They pay they pay interest on it. We go to the market, we go out for them, they pay the interest. It's a small negligible amount, but I think it's a good thing to ask.
Yeah, I would assume it's no more than 2 or 3%. I don't even know if that, but okay.
Okay.
This is a revenue anticipation note, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we've done these in the past, so this is nothing new
Yes.
or different, but
And we're feeling confident the money's coming in?
well, we control, from what I understand, we control the money. So we control all of their money.
And we review their cash flow
Right.
on a weekly basis. So finance does their and there will be times when we will tell them that we think they should do a revenue anticipation note based upon how they're viewing their cash flows.
Jackie, I think your question though was whether or not we have certainty that the money will actually come in for us to control.
Correct. Yes. We're feeling good that the state aid and everything else. Okay.
That's included in the transmittal as well. Some assurances for that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, the next items we have all came in today, so you might not have them available. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly so that you can see them. Let me just.
Set 235 to 243.
The first one is 235, which is
okay.
a competitive grant application.
Got it.
Can I just make a request? Hazel, could you put 234 in my mailbox? I thought I had it, but I don't. But I've got everything else, which is kind of weird.
I'll get it for you, Mike.
Okay, we
Yeah,
can bring it.
appreciate you.
Sure.
So 235, any questions on this?
What, just a minute.
Yep.
Okay.
This is the one where we just say it's okay for them to write grants.
Mm-hmm. With our
Yeah, I-
endorsement under
Yeah, I
certain.
think I'm good with this one.
236 is deficit
Control
reduction.
group.
I'm sorry, this is an exception to the debt limit. Or the debt limit, the 2020, 2021 debt limit.
So they're looking to increase the debt limit by basically $22 million.
Right, and then remember, this is what they, when we talked earlier that this will be coming, when we were talking about the CIP stuff. And remember, this is just our self-imposed debt limit, not our constitutional debt limit. So it's an exception to our self-imposed.
So Malik, is this the one where we normally do 15 or 17% of the total amount? I forgot, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Is that-
yeah, I think.
17% of our total revenue or something like that is allowed what we're able to do in debt?
Right. But it's
That's
one
what this
that's city charter, because there's the constitutional debt limit, which is state, and then there's our own council self-imposed debt limit. So this one is asking us to waive ours for this year because of the COVID, because of the situation that's happened.
But we would still be under the state limit,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. And I'm not sure if it's in there, but if that's a question somebody wants to ask, where are we with our state limit? BJ, you can go ahead and ask that.
Yep.
And that way folks can feel comfortable with seeing where we are there, because we're in a good position there.
I guess my question is just, what's the plan to pay it down over time?
And how much time we should expect to have it until it's paid?
So Councilmember Lupian, you want to know, rather than pay it down, to replenish the funds to get back to a higher amount in our fund?
Oh,
I'm sorry, no, you're right, this is debt limit. So what is the plan to pay down over time? And Councilmember Pio, one more time, what was your question?
How long do we expect until it is paid off over time?
Okay. The next 7 items are all parts of the budget submission. They'll come together. So it is 237, 238, 239, 240, 41, 42, and 43. We can go through quickly. The first is the budget estimates for the municipal purposes.
All right, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily have a question, but these are a lot of the questions that we have in terms like when we were talking about dries and stuff. So if we're talking about like 237, the amounts that's allocated towards each department, obviously, well, never mind. They're supposed to get us all that information before we're supposed to vote.
Yeah,
'Cause I would
if
hope
something
and
changes,
anticipate-
we will have to do an amendment to some of these numbers potentially.
Okay, I'm anticipating we're gonna get something back based on all the conversation we had.
Does anyone have any other questions on any of the items in?
I have specific and particular questions regarding introductory number 238, adoption of budget estimates for school purpose for the 2020-21 fiscal year. What happens if this item does not pass?
Okay, any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to NBD. And the first item is the sale of real estate, 194.
I have some questions. So the assessments versus what they're appraised at are different by about 30 grand. And just wondering if there's an explanation of that. Second question, Rochester Housing Development Fund Corporation. Do we have an idea of, I think I know the answer to this, but do they sell the houses affordably? And then on
So you say
125,
affordable
that was,
income guidelines? Or when you say affordably?
sure. And then for 125 Chapin Street specifically, the history on that looks crazy. It looks like it went back and forth to the city several times. And I guess I just wonder, like, the person who bought it last year at the tax lien sale, it's back already. They also bought like 30 other properties. And what, I guess, what qualifications, that's not the right word. Like through our tax lien sale, would we sell to this person again? Does that make sense?
You mean, you're talking about the foreclosure auction?
Right. So Crestwood TL LLC bought it last year and it's back to us already. Can we not sell to this person again?
You can ask the question. I think the answer is unfortunately yes, because based on what I know, the foreclosure auction is, there are no requirements. It's the way I've always been explained is that we are merely the facilitators between a private transaction from one private owner to another, and that to the highest bidder it goes, which is why something like a land bank or something of that nature to be able to intervene to take them, because then once they're owned by something else, we can be more selective and put certain guidelines on. But ask the question, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, they can buy more property.
Right.
Yeah, Jackie, you're correct. You are correct.
Yeah, I'm all for what you're talking about, Jackie, because this Shadow LLC bought like 35 properties in all low-income neighborhoods. And if that one that they bought last year is back to us already, I'm sure the rest of them are great.
So do you feel your question was answered?
Yeah.
How about we ask the question about, are there any plans to, and I'm on the land bank board, but let's push them anyway. To ask the question again about the land bank being able to take on more capacity for acquiring properties. I don't know. Let's ask it anyway. I know we're tight with revenues, but let's do it anyway.
It generates revenues eventually.
So 195, an agreement for appraisal services.
My question is just, what do we get for that? Is it like unlimited appraisals for the year, or is there a certain amount that we're contracted for?
By two firms.
That was Councilmember Gruber by two firms, right?
Yeah.
$196 and $197, water line easement acquisitions for 275 East Avenue, 78 Rockwood, 80 Rockwood, and 625 South Goodman. Hearing none, we'll move to 198, appropriation for the demolition program. This is the item that you were asking about earlier, Councilmember Ortiz, and it does say approximately 100 residential properties over the next 12 months.
Okay, but can we, I guess then the different follow-up question would be again, about how many demolition worthy properties do we believe are still hanging out there. Because I feel like the last time we got an update, there was that extra spin up money a couple of years ago, and I thought we were pretty much caught up. There were like 500 demos that were done or so that year. And I
Last
know
year?
this is a moving, no, I think it was the year before that. And I know this is always a moving target, but yeah, if we could just ask what the current landscape looks like with demo worthy after this 100 or beyond this 100, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Do they demo every year or is it every other year?
They do
Every
demos
year.
every year.
My question is, how many properties did we demo last year?
Using only in total or using just these funds?
In total, last year.
Would it be possible to get a list of those? And then how do we decide which ones to demolish?
So what's the criteria for demolishing? Okay, we'll move on to 199. That is the appropriation of the Emergency Assistance Program for the 2020-2021 plan.
When we say the emergent, this is the one like the furnaces and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like the smaller residential ones, not the big program we were trying to do, right? I get these things confused. This is the
Yeah,
one we've
the
always
transmittal
done,
says
right?
that this is for replacements of furnaces, boilers, hot water tanks, and other emergencies like electrical and plumbing.
Right, but for owner occupants, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So then we still haven't seen the program for the other one yet.
What is the application and selection process?
First come, first serve? No.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Much.
Michael, is that Vince as your picture?
Excuse me?
Is that Vince as your profile picture?
Why would I have?
Oh,
What?
that's you. I'm sorry. I have it really small.
Oh,
My bad. My question. Yes. My question is kind of similar to Mitch's. Who qualifies? What are the qualifications to apply for the program?
So households must be at or below 80% of the AMI, and I think the qualifications are listed right
And
there.
transmittal.
Sorry, I will admit that I didn't read it as in depth as I would normally.
This would be a great time to mention the fabulous work of our newest addition of staff, Kate. So I'll let BJ mention her fabulous work.
Yep, there's a lot of these have a comparative analysis in the con plan that Katie sent out and we sent out again. There might be one or two revisions, but we'll get those out to you.
Thank you, Katie.
So introductory number 200, which is the appropriation and a mandatory agreement for the housing rehabilitation program. Any questions on number 200?
Is there a way we can limit it to 1 to 2 family instead of 1 to 4 families so that we can help more properties? So at this point, we're at 45 properties, but we're helping 1 to 4 unit owner occupied. Could we do 1 to 2 unit owner occupied and help more?
1 to 4 families are still considered small landlords. And we already have enough programs that limit who we can help, but always a question to ask.
Any other questions on 200?
AMI? If we're gonna, I know it's everything under 80%, but if we're gonna target it all, target for lower than 80%, seems as though there's a mention of the housing market study, so probably there's gonna be targeted neighborhoods. I'd love to understand where those, which neighborhoods or how they are making the selection based on the housing market study and if there's specific AMIs they're going to address within those sections of the community.
So are we targeting for lower than 80% AMI, and are there specific neighborhoods that we're targeting? If so, how are they selected?
Yeah, I guess I would do that in reverse order. Not that it really matters.
And they should have an easy time answering that question, because I think we've asked that question a couple of years in a row now. So that shouldn't be a hard one for them to give us an answer to.
This is probably the first time they've referenced the housing market study just because of when it came out. But yeah, you're right, Mike.
To still make it easy to do. Still a good question.
So we'll move on to 201, which is amendments and reappropriations for the housing rehabilitation 2019-20 and 2018-19 annual action plans. Any questions on introductory 201? Okay, introductory number 202, zoning map amendment for properties on Laura Street and East Main Street. Any questions on 202?
EJ, I'm sorry, can I ask a question on 201?
Yes.
There's just, there's a piece in there that talks about how there's unused funding from ABC and Pathstone from last year, or from 2018 actually. And I'm just wondering how much unused money there was and why.
It's in the transmittal, and the reason why there were unused funds is because they brought the intake processes inside, back into City Hall, but still, because we asked that question at the NBD meeting this morning, but still a good question to ask, and I think we got an answer, so.
Thanks.
Do you want to ask Councilmember Gruber, or are you set?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to understand why there was unused dollars.
Actually, you know what? You just reminded me, guys, of something. When we were talking about applicant criteria and all of that, there's usually a long waiting list for a lot of this stuff. Can you ask them what their process is for cycling through the waiting list? Or do people reapply every year? Or how exactly does that work? Because sometimes I feel like somebody calls and it's always, we're already out of money. We're already out of money, yet there's some money left over. So can we ask really quick again what that process looks like for folks that are on the waiting list from year to year? Like what does that look like?
And that question would include whether or not reapplication is required annually, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, moving on to 202, the Laura Street and East Main Street zoning map amendments.
Oh, come on, Mary, you gotta have something to say. Really?
I'd like to know what the plan is for the rest of Laura Street.
For which portion of Laura Street? The non-mapped or the non-impacted zoning?
Yeah. I believe they took the entire street. I mean, they assumed control of the entire street. I want to understand what the long-term vision is for Laura Street itself.
Mike, if you must know, my question is, do we really have to do that this year?
Knew there was a question.
You mean the entire project, Mary, or?
Yeah, I mean, is there funding tied to this that we'll lose? It seems like, we're in a budget crisis, and is this necessary?
Okie dokie.
So you would be opposed to them doing it this year?
I am not seeing it as something that's necessary, given the tight budget that we're in to do this year.
So you would prioritize other things above this?
I would.
Good to know.
like roofing grants and rec centers and other things.
Hey, you know.
Introductory number 203, an agreement for street liaisons for the 2020-2021 annual action plan.
Yeah, I noticed that in the southeast quadrant, Culver Road corridor and East Main aren't on here, and I would like to know why that is.
I'm not totally positive, and we can ask, but I think that some of this is dealing. Oh, actually, that doesn't impact the question. So Culver and East Main are the ones you want?
Hey, Lachey, has John DeMott been, has it always been the 19th Ward Community Association that had that contract?
No, prior to that, it was Sector 4 CDC
Oh,
that had that contract.
it just
and
moved
the-
over to 19th Ward last year or something?
Yeah, because there was no, I guess they had to find a fiduciary.
Right.
Sector 4 CDC went under. I think Joan Roby Davison was the executive director of that. Remember? Okay.
Any other questions on 203?
I just have one more. You know, I see that there's some outcomes in terms of like businesses checked in with and occupancy rate, but is there any outcomes in terms of, I don't know, increased revenue or programs that they've been assisted with?
Can you help me understand that question?
Yeah, I want to know more about the outcomes of the program other than just contractual number of businesses assisted and occupancy rate. I want more specific, like what programs were they connected to, things like that.
And as much as I like the concept of this whole thing, I really don't like the way they present this material, because when they say businesses, new businesses, there's no way that these folks brought in all these businesses. It would really like it so that moving forward, it's nice to have a summary, but what specifically did you do? Which new businesses did you bring in? Because yeah, new business, NBA for like, let's see, South Clinton, Goodman. There's no way you brought in the Goodwill and Ming's or Le Cub Room, or maybe they did, but
I think some of those are about joining the business association.
well, then thank you for that clarification. It should say new businesses to the association versus new businesses to the avenue or the street.
It does have clarifications on those. One is labeled
Where?
new
you
business,
look at-
new to business
Oh,
association.
corridor.
Yeah, if you look at
Okay,
page
but-
56,
Corridor.
But my
Yeah, please.
question is still the same though, like new business to the corridor. Did
Yeah.
they bring in
To
all
Jackie's
10, 12
point.
of those businesses?
Right, to Jackie's point, some of them just happened to move in there. I understand what you're asking for,
Right.
Jackie, like what did they actually?
What did you do to get them
Recruit.
there?
Correct.
And maybe a more specific, because their mission is kind of vague, you know, supporting economic development, attracting new businesses, how?
Right.
How do the street liaisons report to NBD? That's my question. Because I got to say, back to John DeMott, one thing I give him credit for is every single month we get, do you all get it in your
I
mailbox?
get it.
It's a consistent newsletter telling us exactly what he did over the course of the month. It's very helpful. I wonder if there's a way to have each of the street liaisons have a similar report that comes to our mailbox, if not monthly, on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, he
Yeah, that
does a
would be
great
nice.
job. He's been a huge help. He's always been able to give that information.
Yep.
And
I
that
think
report,
part
he
of it is,
also,
yeah, Lachey, like you're aware, John puts in a lot more than 20 hours a week too. So he
Yes.
just likes the neighborhood. He's committed to the neighborhood. So they probably have limited resources. They do report to Net and Daisy though. That's the reporting venue.
I guess my question is, how do they report? Like, what do they provide to Daisy and her team to
Yeah.
meet their deliverables?
Mhm.
Right. And you would think it would be a consistent report that they all have to do.
oh, so I guess all of them don't do that?
No, they do. I only know this because it was Dana's concept when he was on council. And so we spent a lot of time on it. And unfortunately, because every area of the city and every commercial district is different, they tried to not have a report that was the same for every commercial strip, because some things need something that another strip might not. But I get your point. There should still be a way to.
Yeah, I think there should be some consistency for that.
Mhm.
I want to read back questions for this one because I don't know that I captured all of them. Councilmember Lupian, why are Culver and East Main corridors not included on this list? Councilmember Lupian, are there any outcomes available for programs that the businesses were connected to? What are the specific tactics and efforts that were taken by the liaisons? And Councilmember Ortiz, what did the program do to bring businesses to the corridor rather than having them just naturally join the corridor? Councilmember Gruber, how do street liaisons report back to NBD? We receive reports from John DeMott. Will other liaisons from other corridors be able to report in the same way? Okay. Any other questions on those? 204, appropriation and agreement for tenant and landlord services, 2020-2021 annual action plan.
I'm wondering if there's any connection to the Financial Empowerment Center as part of the foreclosure prevention work.
We're on 204, correct?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
So guys, this upcoming fiscal allocation, because we did just do the CARES Act and they got some money from there too, right? So this is
Separate?
now for the newest
This-
year.
This is for the 2020-2021 annual action plan.
BJ, who's going to be providing this training? I know it mentions about the Housing Council as well as the Legal Aid Society, training for landlords on operating rental property, businesses in compliance with housing quality standards.
They do it, don't they?
I'm sorry?
I believe that the entities listed do it. I think they do the training too.
Pathstone,
Yeah.
Housing Council, or Legal Aid Society? Which one? Or
All three. Pathstone at the Housing Council has a landlord tenant course that they have that a lot of people who
So
aren't
I want
familiar
to know. So I want to know how is this training going to be marketed to the community? You know, how does one know how to get involved in this training? How long is the training? Where is it going to be at? I mean, I just want to know some details because I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, would like to partake in this training. So I just want to know how is this training going to be administered?
Yeah, I would like a schedule if they can send it.
There you go. Especially now, considering that you still can't do X number of folks, over. What are their plans given the COVID limitations that we have to have? I don't know how many they normally get in a classroom, but what are their plans this year
Yeah,
for administering during these conditions?
And is this training offered
Yeah, and to-
free? Do they, is there a fee for service for the training?
I think there is.
They've been
I don't-
doing this though for about 20 years, because I remember
Yeah.
taking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, city's been offering this and they've been doing it for years. These guys, and later on the Urban League, I think we got the Urban League in here too. They've been doing
Okay.
the first time buyers program and everything. So
Yeah, but their first time buyers program, they
They charge for it now.
they charge for it. That's why I was asking, was there a fee for it?
So I don't, and those are good questions. I just remember the city's
Oh.
been funding these programs for the longest. And I remember when I bought my house, I took both of them because I bought a double. So the first one is the new homeowner training and the other one was, new landlord training. So but all great questions.
How did you find out about the program, Mike, when you did it?
Geez, I think I just, you know what it was? I think it was I think it was the bank that I was going through. They plugged me in. They said, you know, you qualify for this. Go take these classes. And I was like, and they might have some money for you. And all you had to say to me was they might have some money for you. Enough. I was off and running.
Yeah, the banks and the realtors are usually the ones that provide the referrals to where this is. But to Willie's point, it's a great opportunity for people. And I think more people need to hear about, particularly the landlord training. I wish we could require any new landlord goes through it, because it's a good training.
Yeah, I didn't know that the city offered the landlord training, or they offered the landlord training. That would be helpful to get out to.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah.
Any other questions on 204? Then we'll move on to 205. I put in your question, Councilmember Gruber. Is there any connection to the financial empowerment centers as part of the foreclosure prevention work? I assumed that's the one you were asking for. Any other on 205? 206, appropriation and agreement of Home Rochester Program Management and Community Housing Development Organization Reserve for the 2020-2021 Annual Action Plan.
Just I would direct everybody back to Katie's wonderful work, the analysis that she did on it. There's some good answers in there to questions you haven't even asked yet.
Yeah.
207, agreements for home buyer training program.
It's actually an awesome program.
Just wondering, do we track outcomes in terms of, you know, if people who've been trained end up foreclosing in the future? And are these people that have already purchased homes, or we're trying to get them ready to purchase homes?
Why do we do this with 4 organizations? Do they each bring a different, do they each fill a different niche?
I don't know. I think it's that I don't know. My thought was that they tried to basically cast the widest net that they can.
Yeah, I mean, and most banks, when they refer people for first-time home buyer programs, you give 3 or 4 options. So, and these are the ones that usually do it: NeighborWorks, CCCS,
Right.
the Housing Council, Urban League. Those are the 4 main ones that do. There's a few others, but those are the 4 main ones that do first-time home buyer training.
That's
And
the
have been
common
doing it
practice
for
in real estate too. They give 3 or 4 options.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
ask the question, but I think that's the answer. We also ask, since they started charging, if the enrollment has dropped at all, or, you know, what effect that may have has had so far?
Well, and to go along with that question, ask if they are charging, and if so, how much?
Some of them
Yeah.
like $50, $75.
I think there are more, some of those courses are more than that. They're actually in the home buyers program.
Yeah, it used to be free. Now they
Yeah,
tell
'cause
you that
I took it and it was free.
yeah, now they tell you that the charge gets rolled into your total
Yes.
like cost, if you will. Like they'll reimburse you if you end up like finishing the program and like.
But if
going-
you don't finish, you forfeit the money that you gave them.
I think, I don't know, but we should ask, because like I
I'm
said,
not
it was
thinking-
free.
If it was free, somebody else was picking up the tab. I don't think it's ever. Yeah, you asked the
Free to
question.
the the
The
Yeah.
resident.
Or the
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, but you know, here we are picking up a tab. So if you're charging, what are you charging for?
Yep, so I have, let's see, for this one, I have, do we track outcomes to see if people who've been trained avoid foreclosure? Are these people who have already purchased homes, or are we getting them ready to purchase homes? Why do we need 4 organizations?
Can
Fill a specific niche?
you can take that out? Okay.
The second part?
That last, no, the second question about whether or not they're getting
Removed.
ready to buy or have already purchased, that's in the transmittal I see.
Are they charging, and if so, how much, Patterson? And if they are charging, has it impacted numbers of participants or fees?
And would you ask, why was the charge instituted? Because I'm wondering if, their costs went up and they had to make up the difference, or if it was an incentive for people who may have been dropping out, that as long as you don't drop out, it gets rolled into
Make
your.
sure you show up.
I think that
Yeah.
was the incentive. That was the reason, Loretta. I think I heard that on outside of city council. That's why.
Mm.
But that was a good question.
208 is the appropriation and agreement for
I just-
Hopwa.
BJ, sorry, I just had one more question on the previous one. At one point, I thought it was required, and just kind of maybe confirming that this is this optional?
Is the training optional to buy a house, you mean?
I don't think it's optional if you want city money.
It's not optional. It's not optional. If you're getting any of those grants, you have to go through home buyer training. And if you're getting the first time home buyer through a bank or the city, you got to go through home buyer training.
So is your question, what grants require this training?
No, my question was if it was required, just thinking like if we're requiring it and charging for it, that's kind of doesn't give folks some options. But yeah, go ahead. You can ask that question too.
I have a question as well.
Go ahead, Councilmember Pio.
In 2019, how many people went through the program for the grant versus how many people actually received the grant?
Excuse me. Sorry.
Okay. Any others? If not, we'll move to 208, which is the Hopwa 2020-21 annual action plan.
I got a couple questions on this one, BJ. How many people do they hope to serve? Is the goal? And I also would like to know, in second page, it says the city will enter agreements with the program only with organizations that are in compliance with the federal regulations. I would like to know what are the federal regulations they're referring to.
The 135 total households. I don't know if you still want to know the amount of people.
You said 35?
135.
Okay.
And that's the same as last year's goal.
Okay.
Right out of that great analysis that you did?
So Council Vice President Lightfoot, I have, what are the federal regulations described in the transmittal?
Yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to 209, which is the appropriation and agreement for aging in place, the 2020-2021 annual action plan.
Why $40,000? How is it spent? It just does not seem like that's going to go, like that can go far at all. That's an editorial. The question is why, how did $40,000 become the number?
It's a great editorial. It's not a lot of money, and it's usually like grab bars and stuff like that.
Any other on 209? If not, we'll move to 210, which is legal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It says we're gonna serve approximately 400 people with that $40,000.
Because it's little small things like grab bars and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
210. An agreement for legal services for seniors. Any on 210? $211, This is the appropriation and agreements for emergency solutions grant, 2020-2021 annual action plan. I would ask if folks could just do a quick look through the list and see if you have any affiliation with these organizations for disclosure. I didn't notice any, but I know that sometimes folks.
I have just been asked to sit on the Veterans Outreach Center board, but I hasn't been approved yet, but I'm a candidate for their board.
Okay, we might want to disclose that anyway. So let me make a note of that. And that is the Veterans Outreach Center.
That is correct.
I'd just like an explanation for how the dollar amount is calculated for each of them, if it's a dollar amount per person or what.
Mitch, are you asking for each of the contracts we've looked at thus far, or for this
Just in this,
item?
in this one in 211, just understanding why Spiritus is getting 4782. It's a very specific number. I'd like to know if there's a formula there.
And I have a similar question. I don't know if I even necessarily need it for this round, but I just want to know, of the allocations, how much is actually spent each year? We used to get a report that showed that, because it would also have at the end, it would sweep what was left. I don't have a sense anymore of, for each of these things that we've gone through, and all of these are basically repeats, how much of their grant allocation is spent each year?
Is this for 211?
No, well, this is a broader question for our community action plan, the whole pot. So I don't need it right now, but I do want it for the overall.
Katie, would you mind just making sure that one goes out? Because
Can I piggyback off of President Scott? I see that they itemize, and this is an impressive report, the who does the homeless. And I'd like to know, is there a way that we can find out how many beds at each facility, or what, what they're offering?
for the organizations that have been selected, how many beds they have?
Yeah, to provide for emergency shelter.
Just to help with some clarification on that too,
Mhm.
if you could have them talk a little bit more about the two types of services that they're offering. So they're offering services to the homeless and the at-risk of homeless population. So when you say at-risk of homeless populations, who is that? Is that rental assistance to deal with rental arrears? What exactly is that?
Introductory number 212 is the sale of real estate and grant agreement with Flower City Habitat for Humanity.
Jose, you got to have some questions. This is all you.
I will write them in.
213, Business Development Financial Assistance Program, Annual Action Plan. 214, a lease agreement with Bill Gray's Inc. for 1000 North River Street, Port Terminal Building.
I'd just like to know, I mean, so they say it was an appraised amount, but $17.50 a month for the use of the outdoor space, it seems kind of low. I mean, I guess what metric did they use to decide that that's how much it was worth?
Apparently the space is kind of small. That was the answer we got this morning.
Oh, okay.
Not this
it's a
monster space. It's like a little corner scratch.
Okay, gotcha.
It's very small.
Can we ask, I mean, obviously they're renewing here, so that may be obviously good, but can we ask for an update in terms of how the businesses are doing? And also now that everything's happened, also kind of the future outlook for these places in terms of continuing on, and I don't know, just some sort of update in the businesses within the port terminal, how things have been going. And do we have vacant spaces left in there? Does anybody know that? I don't know.
I don't know, but I don't think we do. I think everything got picked up. And I would be surprised if Bill Gray's wasn't open right now for outdoor seating.
Right, they probably are. Yeah, I mean, understanding how the business are doing would be great, because I know that the business upstairs, Jetties, that was now something else, I don't remember, maybe it is Jetties now, always seem to be struggling. Like they always seem to be empty. So I was just curious.
Was that the one that's the party space? Is that the one you're talking about?
That's the Arbor.
That's the Arbor Loft. No, the one that it used to be Pier 45 or Pier something. It was really popular in the beginning, and then I think the Hose 22 owner took it over,
Okay.
and it was turned in. It was called Jetties, or I don't know if it still is, but in any case, it always
Yes, it
seemed you know. So I was just curious. We want them to survive, so I just would love to understand kind of how things are going.
Cool.
215, appropriations and agreements for home buyer assistance. 216,
I have something. It seems like a really low amount. So I guess what information did we use to determine that 250,000 was the right amount?
Well, isn't it really 300,000?
so I don't know if this is the case for this particular item, but sometimes items have multiple funding sources.
Well, maybe that's a question to ask.
So
Yes, you're right, 300,000.
No, you're right. It's 250 for the first one, and it's 50 for the city development fund. They're 250.
Oh, I see.
Same question I had before is for this one. How many went through the program or how many went through the application process versus how many actually used it?
in 2019.
Yes, 2019. For the rest of the council, the reason why I'm asking is because I've heard a lot of real estate agents not wanting to accept offers that had this in it as a contingency just because it closes longer than normal. So I wanted to see the numbers.
We get a quarterly report, part of our loans and grants report, I believe. And a big chunk of it is this program.
Introductory 216, appropriation and agreements for the Emergency Solutions Grant CARES Act. For this one, I have a question from Councilmember Ortiz that was asked in chairs, which is, can we have regular status updates on where we stand with the funding for different programs that received CARES Act funding so that we can know if there's still funding for the programs? And then Councilmember Patterson asked earlier, when do we anticipate that evictions will be able to occur again? Will this funding be held in reserve to deal with evictions, or is it able to be spent now?
And I believe the answer we got was that these dollars were being held in reserve. Evictions get to start up again. What was he saying, June 20th?
I don't recall.
The first phase, well, so there's a first phase of evictions that get to start up this month. And then after that, I believe it's August when things open up in more detail, but they will be providing that information to us in the responses. But these dollars—
Is that coming from the state or from the county?
What are you talking about? The limitations on evictions are imposed by the state.
The schedule for,
That should be coming from the state.
oh, I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah, but then the courts have to be open in order for evictions to be processed. And I think we don't have a date for that yet.
well, I think we might, but they'll be giving us that information.
So that's what I have in the question. Is there any other on 216?
Anybody happen to be familiar with the person-centered housing options. I'm not familiar with that at all. Who is
Great.
that? I mean, what is that?
Neil Coulter, he works with the homeless.
He works with the folk over at Peace Village, right? I know that helps out with Sister
Loretta,
Grace too, but what is this person-centered housing options?
Yeah, that's his organization, and they we've done a lot of contracts with them over the years. We even did one with them at EL Towers over Landsman's property on South Avenue.
Oh, yeah.
They do a lot of the outreach and social work with a lot of the affordable housing communities as well.
if you haven't met Nick Coulter, you need to meet Nick Coulter. Nick is a very good dude.
I think I have. I'm just not familiar with that program name.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
217.
I got a
Project
question on this one.
On 216.
Yeah, is there any, like, do we require any kind of reporting to see how the funds get spent, or we just, you know, they tell us what they're spending it for and we give them the money? Okay, I guess, is there any accountability?
Okay. 217. Any questions on 217?
I'm gonna go back and tag on to Councilmember Lupien's question. My question is not about whether or not they give us a report, but does anybody do any monitoring, which is distinctly different?
I'm sorry, BJ, what number you on?
President Scott just added that to 216, which is about the CARES ESG funding.
Okay, I also
Actually make mine an overall, it's overall for the community action plan contract allocations. Because the
So
process.
do you want that to go up to the finance one for con plan items? Does anyone do any monitoring?
Yeah.
Maybe jump back up there for a second.
I also see the Veterans Outreach Center mentioned in this as well, too.
Oh, okay, I will. Thanks for noting that, Councilmember. So President Scott, does anyone monitor or does anyone provide monitoring for organizations that receive funding through the con plan?
Right.
Okay. Let me find my way back to my sheet here. So we are on 217, which is the appropriation for a project development program for the City Development Fund. Any questions on 217?
Have they already identified the 3 projects that they have listed in there for the next 12 months? If so, what?
If this is something that is reoccurring, can we get information on who received, which projects received this last year? And is this tied to affordability in any way?
BJ, I can find what projects used CDF funds last year.
I'm sorry?
Was Mary asking what projects used community development funds last year?
Yep.
I can find that. You don't have to submit it as a question.
Okay, we'll probably still submit it just because that way it'll go in with the answers, but
all right,
just so we don't forget on our end. But
thanks.
Any other on 217? Go with 218, which is an amending ordinance 2020-96 for Pueblo Nuevo affordable rental housing project. Any on 218?
I just have one question about energy efficiency. And I know we talked about this before, but I don't remember if I got an answer. If they're planning on using solar panels or air source or ground source heat pumps, like what energy efficiency and renewable energy technologies are they planning on using, if any?
We're in PPW now. Introductory number 219 is a professional services agreement for community choice aggregation administrator.
I didn't see that, read that carefully. One of my concerns had been that with CCA, it could have a negative effect on lower income communities because, something about how late payments affect them and they don't have the same options as they would if they were separate.
How about this as a question? Did we allay our concerns about how this could impact low-income communities?
Yeah.
And I used allay because you're the one who did it. And you love those big words.
Good use of delay, although 5 letters isn't that big, but good use
All
of
right.
Fancy. It's fancy, Mitch.
I wasn't aware that it had, that there were concerns about that.
Yeah, it's something to the effect that, I guess with the lower income communities, some of the folk go almost the whole season and without being shut off, and then they are able to get their energy, that annual money energy allocation you can get. With CCA, you can't do that because it messes up everybody else's payments or something along those lines. I have to look back at it, but there definitely was a concern.
I remember Commissioner Jones expressed something in a meeting that we had, and I think it may have been something that dealt with people who were unable to pay their bill on time and their ability to opt in and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
For energy savings. So I think if we frame it like that, we can always re-ask at committees if we don't get the right answer.
Okay.
Yes, to go along with that question, does this have what is the impact of HEAP on this program?
Of what, Mike?
HEAP? Because, that's exactly what you're talking about. Home Energy Assistance Program, the state program that helps folks pay for their heating in the winter and their cooling in the summer.
Right.
So by definition, you're running a bill.
Right.
So I think that might be what you're talking about. I'm not sure, but there's a program right there that a ton of low-income, by definition, low-income people take advantage of. That's extremely helpful. Is this going to does this have a negative impact on that program?
Yeah.
Introductory number 220.
I got a question. I know you want to get through it, but it will, what advocates have been asking for is to use CCA as a way to get 100% renewable energy for less money than we're currently paying. Is that the city's plan to be 100% renewable energy?
Anyone else?
You're gonna ask that, right? Because that hasn't come through as a council policy or anything. So,
well, the CCA is you go out to market. I know you know what it is, but you go out to market to be able to bargain for energy, and so that's why advocates were pushing for it so hard. So, they're worried that we're going to do it, but then not do the renewable, which is why they were pushing for it in the first place.
Well, but part of the challenge is too, renewable is nice and everybody's in favor of it, but then there's also the cost of energy. So,
because it's offset because we're.
Let me finish.
I can't hear you, Mike.
I said, so for me, the concern is the cost of energy also. I don't have any problem with renewable, but for low income folks, and I get it, the aggregation should force down the cost. Yeah, but maybe yes, maybe no. Is there a negative impact on this for low income folks? I mean, because for me, I don't have a problem with renewable, certainly in favor of it, but I'm really more in favor and interested in low cost energy, especially for folks who are low income.
Okay, so I think we have both of those questions in there. So we have the, do we allay the concerns about how this could impact low income communities from President Scott? What is the impact of HEAP on this program by Councilmember Patterson and Councilmember Lupien? Is the city's plan to be at 100% renewable energy? If not, what is the city's plan regarding renewable energy?
Sounds like it.
And maybe just to be specific, because to my understanding, we could get renewable energies for less than what we're currently paying, so it would be a reduction, but is there anything that they could give us to that effect? Or maybe they won't know until we go to bid.
So how would you like that phrased? Just if it is not, what is the city's plan regarding the use of renewable energy?
Well, I want the, you know, specifically, is it going to be 100%? And if not, then, well, I think it's two separate questions, because one is about the price. Like, do we have any information on what the price might be to be 100% renewable?
I've added, do we know what the price would be to be 100% renewable? Any others on 219 before we keep on trucking? All right. 220 is a bond authorization for environmental services, Rochester Fire Academy inactive hazardous waste disposal site.
Is this the pit thing out there where they do their rifle
They
range?
do the fire burns at.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yep. Okay.
They were getting a lot of runoff from the fuel there.
On 221 then, grant acceptance for the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation greenhouse gas inventory updates and heat emergency plan. Any on 221? All right. The next is a semi-companion piece with the one in NBD. It deals with the Laura Street and the official map amendment and geometric changes. Any on that?
Jeez, it's not 6 o'clock.
The pictures of the building are in there. This is going to be a good looking facility.
Yeah, we had a long chat about it, BJ, Norm and I. The one thing is still the eagle. People want that eagle to be a friendlier eagle, a little less.
What's wrong with the eagle?
You want a friendlier eagle, Willie. That's all I can tell you. And
Make the eagle smile. Make the eagle smile, brother.
Even better, the commissioner found a student from Soda who drew an eagle embracing children between its wings.
For
Okay.
lunch.
I believe that's what we're gonna do.
Well, he flies off with the.
It's dinner time.
All right. With the exception of our eagle conversation, does anyone have any other comments on 222? Move to 223, an agreement for Edge Architecture PLLC, Lincoln Branch Library Reconfiguration Schematic Design. All right, 224. Geometric changes for the RCSD Francis Parker number 23 school at 170 Barrington Street. Any on 224?
Good luck.
All right. Number 225, State Street Reconstruction Project, Basin Street Inner Loop. Any questions on 225? .226 and 227 are together. That is the University Firehouse Truck Bay alteration. Any questions on 226 or 227?
You know, that's my old firehouse, so you guys got to vote for this one.
Might have to abstain there.
No, I don't think so.
I'm just messing with him.
All right.
Here's
The
my
last-
question. Maybe Willie knows the answer. Why is it so expensive? Is it equipment or?
If you notice, Mary, everything we do with the firehouses seems to be extremely expensive. Even if we do even if we put a stove in there,
Those
it costs
ovens,
$100,000. I think they're price gouging us. I really do. I can't answer that. You know, it's good. Ask the question.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know how I want to phrase it.
Say it the way you said it.
I just said,
Yeah,
why is the
why-
cost so high for this?
There we go.
All right, 228, the West River Wall Project. Any on 228? Former council member Conklin would be excited for this.
Yes, she would.
Probably still is.
Yeah.
All right, move on to 229, an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Arundecoit in Monroe County for the for READY, the Resiliency and Economic Development Initiative. Any on 229? Okay, we're going to move on to the Public Safety, Youth and Recreation Committee. And we're going to start with introductory number 230, which is the forfeiture funds for the anti-gun violence campaign. Any questions on 230? Okay. 231 is an agreement. Yes.
This is tangentially related. I understand about the restrictions on the way that we can spend the forfeiture funds, but I would like, it just seems in a time when money is so short, to have a balance of $780,000 just sitting there. I want to ask why we don't have an annual expenditure plan for the forfeiture fund, so that we could be assured of spending something, a good chunk of this every year, instead of having it sitting there.
Okay. Anything else on that one?
Oh.
Move on to 231, which is an agreement for veterinary services for Rochester Animal Services. Any on 231? Hitting the home stretch. 232, an agreement for consumer credit counseling services of Rochester, Inc. Any on 232? Hearing none. Last item is 233, which is a tweener, the summer food program. We did have a work session on this, but it appears that some things have changed since that work session. So that is 233 summer food service program.
I don't have that one in my package. I probably got it in my email.
I think that we got that one. Conda or Hazel, do you remember what day that came through?
They delivered it when they delivered our packets. It was when they delivered what was it? It came in.
I think it was last Friday.
Yeah.
I'm going to excuse myself, especially because of the item up as well. So I'm going to leave. Take care, everyone.
Okay,
Just a quick reminder before you do, if you have questions, please get them that you didn't have time to get in tonight. Please get them to me by noon tomorrow so I can get them over to Josanne.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's introductory number what?
233.
I'd like a list of locations.
Yes. It was Tuesday.
I see breakfast and lunch. Is there no dinner being offered this summer? I don't think dinner ever was offered in the summer, but
Yeah, I don't
I
think.
don't think they've ever done
Would you
dinner,
like
Mike.
would you like to reframe it to say, given the food distribution that we've done for COVID-19?
right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Why can't I find
President Scott, I just sent it to you.
Huh?
I just sent it to you in email.
Did you send it in my both or which one?
Yes, both.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, as President Scott,
Yeah, keep going.
well, that's the last one. We would be done with the work session at this point, or the agenda review.
Wonderful.
All right, so no other questions on 233. A gentle reminder, as you know, please get any additional questions that you may have had on tweeners or things that you didn't necessarily get the chance to get a good look through by tomorrow at noon. And with that, we are, Madam President.
So
adjourned.
that concludes our agenda review.